I also know that you all are hearing a great deal about the Delta variant of COVID-19. That's not lost on us with respect to the actions we will need to take to make sure that our campus remains secure and is also offering the best protocols in higher education like we've done now for 18 months. To do that, though, we need you. And the first order of business, as I've said before, is making sure that you are vaccinated with the exception of those who have religious or medical exceptions. We have a goal of 100% vaccination on campus. Today, we are at 58% of our university community having at least one shot. And while that's good progress, that is certainly not good enough. It is critically important that you protect yourselves. Dr. Coker is with us today. She's talked a lot about why it is important to protect yourselves. Just from my perspective, though, I can tell you that as we've gone around and looked at a lot of the things that have happened since the Delta variant has really gained momentum, those folks who weren't vaccinated were not going to get vaccinated and they got COVID-19. We're very sorry that they didn't have the opportunity to vaccinate themselves before. This is still a deadly infectious disease. And I don't want that lost on anyone. Secondly, I spent some time, as I do from time to time, with some former recent alum, which means they graduated last spring, Corbin Weatherspoon, who's attending Columbia University this fall, and Marco Robinson, who's in New York Theological Seminary. We did an interview where I was interviewing them for about an hour. And I can tell you that those students, those recent graduates, what they appreciated most about our university community is that we put their safety first, And I think particularly as adults and people who are committed to higher education, our responsibility to lead by example is paramount to our ongoing success. And you're hearing that from the students we have here and the students that have recently graduated. I cannot stress enough that we have to lead by example in this space. Finally, I know you've heard about all of the what I would call myths that are associated with the vaccination effort. I do think there are some valid concerns out there, but there are lots of concerns that are really about the noise related to vaccines and infectious disease that don't have anything to do with COVID-19. I think we all know that this is a special, specific situation, a once in a lifetime pandemic that has taken the lives of so many across our community, particularly in communities of color. So our ability to protect ourselves and make sure that we're protecting those we love are paramount. That's why we come to you today. We come to you with an open heart, recognizing that encouraging you to do the right thing is of most importance. But keeping our university safe is of equal value. So the idea here is to give you as much information as possible. As always, make sure that you have an opportunity to ask any questions you might have and continue to make sure that you understand all of the responsibilities you have as a member of the university community as we move forward. I'm joined today by Dr. Michelle Fisher, our Chief Medical Officer and one of the generals of our COVID-19 reaction policy, Lucretia Moultrie, our Chief Enterprise Risk Officer, Tammy Stoner, who has been in the vaccination vineyards throughout the summer. She's just been doing an incredible job. You should all know that there is vaccination available to you at Delaware State University every week. And it's been that way since the month of April. And Tammy is leading that effort as well, in addition to so many other responsibilities. And obviously, my dear friend, but now a dear friend to us all, Dr. Joan Coker. I don't need to introduce Joan that much, except to say that without her, Neil Hochstein and Testing for America, we would have had a very different year and a half here at Delaware State University, one that I think would have been devastating for our 130-year legacy. So Joan, as always, thank you for who you are, what you do, and what you mean to our university community, and equally important to the entire state of Delaware. I don't think there's been a stronger, more clear leader on the COVID-19 front than Dr. Joan Coker. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fisher, who will take us through the program today. I'll come back to you during the Q&A period. I want you all to know that I care for you very much. I want the best for you and your family, and I want us all to do the right thing. Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Good afternoon, Hornet family. I hope everyone is enjoying the summer and staying safe and well. As you've heard recently, and we're all aware, the COVID-19 pandemic is an ongoing, evolving public health concern. Next slide, please. As the picture below shows, there have been 4 strains of the original COVID-19 virus in the United States since December of 2020. In May of this year, we were told that vaccinated people no longer needed to wear masks. Just recently, as of last week, in fact, the CDC now made the recommendation for mask use indoors for fully vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals in areas of substantial or high transmission. Higher ed, because we have people coming from all over the country and actually also internationally, will always be considered an area of substantial or high transmission. And it's also been now discovered that vaccinated individuals can transmit the Delta strain of the COVID-19 virus. So I just want to, next slide, please. I want to briefly talk to you about the Delta variant. So what makes this variant so aggressive? And that's something we should be concerned about. Number one, it has a higher viral load. It is highly transmissible. As I said, it's more aggressive and transmissible than the other strains of the COVID-19 virus and accounts for an estimated 83% of COVID cases across the country. It has a shorter incubation period. It primarily infects unvaccinated individuals, but there has been breakthrough cases amongst vaccinated individuals who have either mild symptoms or asymptomatic, but the key is here, they can transmit the virus. We're also starting to see an increasing number of hospitalizations amongst teenagers and young adults, which is very concerning. So overall, vaccination is still the best defense against the Delta variant because it reduces the risk of severe illness and death. So what does that mean for our campus? So I'm just going to briefly review the COVID requirements and practices for fall 2021. Remember, our primary concern, as Dr. Allen said, is the health and safety of the campus community. So just like in our previous semesters, we are going to require the negative PCR COVID test within 7 days prior to reporting to campus. So that will need to be submitted to studenthealth2020@desu.edu. We are also going to test upon arrival to campus. That's both students and employees will be tested upon arrival to campus. We're going to require mask indoors for everyone, and unvaccinated individuals will be required to wear masks outdoors. Testing will continue, and it will be weekly for individuals that are vaccinated and twice a week for those who are unvaccinated. And also very important to remember, a multi-layered approach to prevention is key. So we will continue to encourage good hand hygiene, physical distancing when possible, and our daily cleaning protocols that we had. And as always, Campus Health and ERM will continue to monitor for changes as they unfold and provide updates and make changes accordingly. I am going to turn this over to Dr. Coker. Dr. Coker, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just excited for you to review pertinent things involving COVID-19 and the vaccine.
Coker, you're on mute.
Let's see. There we go. How about now?
We can hear you.
Great. Good afternoon, Hornet family. I am delighted to be here before each of you today. And we're just going to answer some of the more pertinent questions that we hear quite often in the community, which I'm sure many of you may be thinking the same thing. The first big topic is this emergency use authorization. I'm waiting, Dr. Coker, for the FDA to approve this vaccine. That's why I'm not getting it now. Here's the good news. The emergency use authorization was approved and is approved by the FDA. They are still continuing to get data. Each of us that has gotten vaccinated, weekly, we get updates asking us, how are you feeling today? Are there any aches and pains? Did you miss work? And many of us, especially those of us who got the shots early on in the process, we have been vigorously answering all those weekly, daily questions that may be asked, which gives them some insight into what happens in the future. And that's what you need to get this final approval, is just more data. There were more people enrolled in the COVID vaccine rollout. 70,000 people between Moderna and Pfizer signed up to say, give me this shot. Let me see if I can help make a difference, which is absolutely unheard of. So there are more folks. And in each of those studies, 30 to 50% were people of color. I'm speaking of Moderna and Pfizer in particular. Another common question is, I am young. I am thinking about having children. I may be pregnant. What are my concerns? And when I've talked to all of my colleagues in OBGYN, everyone understands that there are always so many risks for those of you that are pregnant or considering pregnancy. And COVID is one of those risks that can cause a lot of problems with you, thus trickling down and infecting the baby. However, when they did the trials, some women got pregnant in the trial. And the best news at the end of the day was not only were they able to successfully deliver their children, but some of the babies had the antibodies to COVID through connection with the mother. So we actually got a 2-for-1. And I listened to a woman the other day who just delivered and was in tears because her child, also her unborn child that she had just had hours before, was positive for the antibodies for COVID as a result of her getting vaccinated while pregnant. So I would say to those young mothers, you do not have to worry. What you do have to worry about is being pregnant and getting COVID, especially this Delta strand. As Dr. Fisher mentioned, it is far more deadly. It seems to have a different twist for young people, where the Alpha variant seemed to give you guys more of a break. But those of you that are younger and in the 30s and 40s even, this variant is wearing folks out. How do we eliminate variants? Get vaccinated. If you get vaccinated, it doesn't change its spots in the host, such as you, that may be unvaccinated. That's the problem. We're getting these variants because we just don't have enough folks vaccinated. Now, I get it. I'm a woman of color, and I was skeptical, just like many of you. In fact, I wasn't getting the vaccine. That's just the truth. And if you watched any of my webinars, you know that's absolutely the truth. One, I went to Tuskegee, so I understand that. But I also understand the campaign of mis and disinformation we have all received, especially over the last 4 years. So the last thing I wanted to do was get in line during a pandemic for one of the most deadly viruses that has ever stepped on planet Earth. But I didn't. And I'm gonna tell you what changed my mind. What changed my mind was that the vaccine wasn't ready in time for the election. So that let me know that big business was not beholden to the president. And it also let me know that science still mattered. And the beauty in this country is every leader of most of our higher level African-American organizations, such as Morehouse School of Medicine, Howard School of Medicine, the King Drew Medical Center in Los Angeles, Meharry Medical Center, they got together, those physicians that lead those organizations got together got everybody from the CDC, NIH, Kids-McKeer Corbett, Moderna, Pfizer, all on the line, and allowed us in thousands of physicians of color to just ask the tough questions, because the last thing we wanted to be was false prophets. But what we knew was that relationships matter when it gets down to the brass tacks of conversations with many folks, like some of you on the line right now. The hesitancy is real. You are locked in. You are committed to not doing it. But what we're seeing is that this variant is creating a very different conversation. And what I ask young mothers with kids that are not able to get vaccinated is, are you okay if you test negative, but indeed may be positive, and you come home and that child that had no option accidentally gets infected and may wind up on a ventilator or huffing and puffing from as an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old when they may have been a star athlete. So if you can wrestle and reconcile that in your mind as you make these decisions, same question for that friend that's going through chemo, who got the vaccine and tried, that elderly grandmother who got the vaccine and tried, but perhaps didn't mount all the response that would be hopeful and necessary to combat the Delta variant. If you accidentally take them out, be okay with that. And if you can resolve that in your mind, then stay right where you are. But if you can't, it's time to make a change, because the best way to decrease your contagion level is to be vaccinated, And the best way to be there for your children, should there be a problem, because they may not have a choice at this point. They may be 5, they may be 7, they may be 11, almost 12, but not 12 yet. Then you just want to have a weapon in the toolbox to fight for them should, God forbid, they get sick. And that weapon, the only weapon we have right now, is the vaccine. So that is my encouragement today, is walk this whole thing out, because it's, at the end of the day, it's not about you. It really isn't about you. I'm happy that you do wheatgrass shots and only eat fruits and vegetables, and you're vegan and you have an amazing diet. I think that's outstanding. And I think you could probably make it, but that's not the end of the story, because that's not the end of your life, because you don't live in a bubble. So we got to walk it out with all of those in our lives that may not be as strong as we are as a result of our wheatgrass shots and our amazing diet. And if you can walk that out and reconcile that, then stay right where you are. But if you cannot, I beg and plead of you to get in line right now while it's available, free, and necessary. Get in line right now, because the lines are going to get longer as we get deeper into the woods, because the mandates will be more. Let's just be clear. We're in America. Mandates will be greater. And we're shipping a lot of supply out of the nation. So when you get in line, I want your choices to be the Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine. And that's what I want for you, because I believe those are the best two. And I believe that we do well with both of those, we as people of color. So that would be my hope for everyone today. But I'm willing to take any other questions that you might have.
Dr. Coker, before you go on, I want to just ask one question about religious and medical exceptions. Could you just talk about really the medical exceptions, what those, in your expert opinion, what those should look like?
So the medical exceptions are not necessarily, oh my gosh, Dr. Coker, I have allergies. If you are allergic to something in the vaccine, we can help you navigate that research. So if you've had a reaction, and when I say reaction, please understand what I'm saying. I don't mean, Joan, I got the flu shot and then I felt like I had the flu. Yep, that's many of us. That is not an adverse reaction. That is a reaction to a killed virus that was put in your system. The COVID vaccine has no part of the COVID virus in it, which is awesome. It is messenger RNA to the spike protein. But if you've had an anaphylactic reaction, racing heart, shortness of breath, someone called 911 because you felt like your throat was closing, that is an adverse reaction to a vaccine, and we can do the research for you. I had a lady who had a reaction when she went to Africa to one of the shots she had. I looked at all the ingredients, I looked it up, and the only one she couldn't get was the J&J vaccine. So everything else she did absolutely fine with. So if you talk with us, and when I say us, a physician, and we are ENT and allergy of Delaware, so we can talk about a lot of those allergic reactions. We have many cardiologists that may not feel that some of their patients are in the right condition from a cardiac stance to take the risk of getting it, but they will walk you through that because there are very few that they are not vaccinating. So if you had a recent transplant and you're on high dosages of steroids, of course we get it, and we will walk that through with your transplant surgeons. And when they think you're ready, or those doctors, they may have you on chemotherapy when they feel your blood levels are strong enough, we are right there for you. So we're walking in lockstep with physicians all over the country. That was a great question, Dr. Allen. And yes, we will walk in lockstep with your physicians.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Dr. Coker, can you talk briefly about some of the long-term consequences of having had the actual COVID-19 infection? I know a lot of people have concerns, and rightfully so, about the potential long-term effects of the vaccine, but we don't hear enough about the people who have survived COVID and are living now with chronic health conditions solely related to COVID.
It's a great question, Dr. Fisher, and I'm glad you asked it, because the truth of the matter is these are called long haulers. And please don't make the mistake of thinking that these long haulers are the elderly. They're not. They're young. They can't get their memory together. They're short of breath. They're extremely fatigued, and distortion of taste, distortion of smell. And until you've gone through something like that, you may not understand the magnitude of that. But when folks can't eat because everything tastes different than what they know it to be, that can cause you to lose weight. And when you cannot eat, you cannot function. And so there are long haulers clinics all over the country trying to find that common thread that binds them all. But you go from the star athlete that is short of breath to the young person that their memory has been challenged. And those are the things that we need in order to be successful. So you're right. We don't have all of the potential effects of the vaccine, but the fact that there is no virus in this vaccine makes us all feel a whole lot better. And messenger RNA is almost like Snapchat, for those of you who understand that. Once it does what it's supposed to do in your body, it literally just disintegrates and it is gone. So the idea that there may be some long-term effects with the vaccine, I think are very, very slim. But we can't create the probability of those that are going to be long haulers. That's the problem. We can't tell one from the other. We don't know whether it's, those that are very young, those that eat simple sugars, those that are overweight, those that are, We're seeing a little bit of everything. It's just literally grace and favor if you've made it through with nothing. And for those of you that have made it through and think you have this natural immunity, you do, for about 90 days. But it's not as effective as getting the vaccine and those antibodies lasting. Many of us, here we are 6-8 months in, you don't hear a peep out of the elderly in these skilled facilities. You don't hear a peep out of a lot of the physicians. We're exhausted. We're back on the front line again, but we're healthy and it's optimistic. And that's where we want to be.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Lucretia Moultrie, our Chief Enterprise Risk Management Officer. And at the end, Dr. Coker, if you have time to hang around, I'm sure there'll be questions for you. Thanks so much. Lucretia?
Thank you, Dr. Fisher, and thank you, Dr. Coker, for your comments today. So good afternoon, everyone that's here with us today for the forum. Today, I joined the group to discuss the most recent updates to our COVID-19 operations policy, as well as information related to the vaccines and how they apply to our employees on campus. So the updated COVID-19 operations policy was uploaded onto the university's website a few weeks ago. And I know that some of you have already taken the time to review it. And thank you for reaching out to me with follow-up questions or feedback. It's always helpful. First and foremost, what is notable about this new policy is that for the first time, we draw distinctions between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. So anyone who's vaccinated is defined as follows per our policy. You've received 2 doses of the Moderna or Pfizer vaccines, or received 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and 14 days past since your final dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. So anyone who meets that criteria would be considered vaccinated under the policy. Anyone who does not meet that definition is, of course, considered to be unvaccinated for the purposes of the policy. We are currently maintaining statistics regarding the employee population here at DSU. Page 2 of our COVID-19 operations policy actually includes a link that our faculty and staff can use to submit your vaccination forms or exemption forms. But what I ask all of you to do is, whether you've already voluntarily reported to HR, I ask that all of you go to that link so that we have all of your information and we can make sure that we have the most accurate data to date. To be clear, at this time, the university has only issued the vaccination mandate to our students, and we, of course, have consistently, strongly encouraged our faculty and staff to vaccinate for some time now. But I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of my presentation. So as Dr. Fisher mentioned, we talk about face coverings in our COVID-19 operations policy. So everyone's required to wear their face coverings when you're indoor, except under the following circumstances. If you're alone in a private office or in your residence, particularly in the case of students, or while eating at least 6 feet away from another person indoors. Vaccinated individuals are not required to wear their face coverings outdoors. With regard to testing, I want to reiterate, anyone who's vaccinated is required to test once a week. Anyone who's unvaccinated is required to test 2 times per week. And consistent with how our policy has mandated in the past, anyone who gets twice weekly testing is required to have a 2-day period between their 2 testing dates. Anyone that reports intermittently to the university, not having regular contact with our campus, is required to submit a negative test result to Campus Health Services prior to reporting, and that test has to be conducted within 7 days of their reporting date. We will continue to use our Campus Shield app, so everyone should be completing those questions on a daily basis, those COVID screening questions, confirming that you're healthy and you're good to go and free to be on our campus. Campus events and visitors, we received a lot of questions about that, and we wanted to make sure that we communicated about that very clearly in our policy. The university is still closed to the general public. And to be clear, that applies to all of our locations, so including our downtown campus and our Kirkwood campus. We're generally closed to the public. However, what we are allowing now is university-sponsored public events. And in order for an event to be university-sponsored, it has to be approved by Campus Events and Enterprise Risk Management. So our policy, if you visit our policy on the COVID landing page, you'll see that there's actually a link within the policy to a memorandum that was issued by Ms. Tamara Stoner, Director of VRM, and it actually outlines the process in order for you to request approval to have a university-sponsored event. But I ask that you all give yourselves plenty of time to go through that process. If you wait until, 2 weeks before an event, you're going to be hard pressed to have enough time to obtain the approval and enough time to actually, make it known that you're hosting an on-campus event. Travel. So university travel remains suspended, both international and domestic. We do understand that there will be times where travel may become necessary. And under those circumstances, within the policy, there is a link to a COVID-19 travel approval form. In that form, you'll have to explain why your travel is necessary, why alternate arrangements aren't appropriate under the circumstances, safety precautions that will be taken during your travel, and who will be traveling, whether that's staff, faculty, and or students. That form will go to Enterprise Risk Management, who will also consult with Campus Health. And once it's reviewed, you can submit it through DocuSign, receive all the signatures, and you'll be good to go. It'll either be approved or disapproved. So earlier in my presentation, I talked about employee vaccinations and where we stand. So as of now, we're at approximately 55% of employees have reported to Human Resources that they are vaccinated, which is great. But ultimately, our goal is to get as much as our campus community vaccinated as possible, because where we want to be is in the safest space, having at least reached herd immunity. So the month of August will be a month where we are rolling out an employee incentive program. So every employee who can prove that they have been fully vaccinated, receiving both shots of Pfizer or Moderna, or one shot of Johnson & Johnson, or has an approved exemption, will be eligible for a payment of $250 and one personal day. And now what I'll do is have Ms. Stoner talk to you about how we have curative on campus. We want to make sure vaccines are as accessible as possible to our campus community. So she'll say that. Ms. Stoner.
Ms. Moultrie, and again, thank you, Dr. Coker, for joining us today, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us. So our curative mobile van will be on campus offering vaccines and COVID testing every Tuesday and Friday in DSU parking lot number 14 from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. When you arrive at the mobile site, you will just need to provide confirmation of your appointment and a photo ID, which could be your driver's license or a DSU ID. In-person registration is also accepted. We will also have testing and vaccines available on the Wesley campus the week of August the 23rd. So we just plan to make sure that it's available across both campuses. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at tstoner@desu.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moultrie and Ms. Stoner. Mr. McMillan, are there any questions? We do have time for Q&A.
Yes, we do have a couple. First question, give me 1 second. Are masks required to cover both mouth and nose?
Yes, because that is the only way that you're wearing a mask properly if it covers both your mouth and your nose.
Is a face shield considered an acceptable alternative to a mask? Those of us who will be teaching need to know how to respond to students who appear with these mask situations.
According to the CDC, a face shield is not an acceptable substitution for a mask, because the face shield has an opening at the bottom, so it does not prevent secretions from entering into the atmosphere.
So I'm sure that this answers the same question, but I still want to just state it. While teaching, do we need masks? can we use face shields or some other protective devices instead of masks while teaching?
That is a good question, but being that it is indoors, I would feel that a mask is still the best defense that you have. Dr. Coker or Ms. Moultrie, would you like to touch on that at all?
So we've made our policy responsive to the most recent guidance from the CDC, which recommends that whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, that you wear your face covering. So we've kept our policy consistent with that. So even faculty and staff will need to wear their face coverings while indoors. And just to clarify, I think someone raised a very relevant point about dealing with situations where students may not be compliant with the policy. So we've made it a point in our policy to clarify what a proper face mask is. And it also states that we have the ability to issue disciplinary action. So any times where staff, faculty are having problems with students complying with any requirement under the policy, but of course, in particular related to wearing face coverings, I strongly recommend that you reach out to the judicial office so they can assist you with following through with that process.
While I am vaccinated, my spouse has a severe chronic medical condition. I am wondering if it's necessary for me to be on campus every day of the week, as I am trying to avoid bringing the virus home to him.
I would recommend, I'm sorry, Dr. Allen, it looked like perhaps you wanted to respond to that one.
Yeah, look, I don't know the specifics of that teammate's job responsibilities, but I hope what we have learned over the last 18 months is that there are different modalities of work that maintain effectiveness and efficiency for those folks who have gone through that experience and are effectively working remotely and can have the approval of their supervisor to do so. Just know that the president is very supportive of that. I actually think that if we were to return back to normal pre-COVID, that would be a mistake for our university, and would suggest that we hadn't learned much with respect to how we're able to work and execute on our mission. So I don't know your specific situation, but what I can tell you is that if you have effectively and efficiently worked remotely and you have the approval of your supervisor, you can continue to do that.
When tested on campus, do the results automatically get reported, or do we need to send it?
When testing on campus, the results are automatically reported.
If someone does test positive for COVID, what is the length of time someone is to be isolated? Is it 14 days or shorter? Does it depend on the person's vaccination status?
The current CDC guidelines say it says 10 days, but then you also need to be medically cleared because some people are still having symptoms of COVID after their 10-day period is up, and it's to the point where they are unable to function. So that is on a case-by-case basis. So right now on our policy, it's 10 days, and then you need to be cleared by either your primary care provider and or campus health services.
Will faculty be notified if a student is quarantined? And I'm assuming that that's a student that's associated with that faculty member.
When any individual tests positive for COVID-19, we do contact tracing and we have them identify their close contacts. And based on the individuals that they identify as close contacts, those are the people who are notified.
Will we be expected to stream our classes for those in quarantine?
Again, that's another unique opportunity for us, right? So we have learned that there are different learning modalities as well. And while we know that in-person instruction offers, in our view, the best opportunity for ongoing learning in this climate. The opportunity for us to stream, generally speaking, whether a student has COVID or not, is an important part of making sure that those classes are routinely accessible. So I would hope that all of the faculty are engaging and thinking about, where applicable, how they can stream their classes online for all students.
Will staff and faculty be mandated to return to campus?
There's no mandate with respect to returning to campus. And to date, we have not fully mandated vaccination. We've been trying to be thoughtful. You've heard about the incentive program. But I can tell you, if you have an opportunity to get vaccinated, do not have a religious or medical exception, and decide not to be vaccinated, then the opportunity for you to return to campus is going to be limited, and it will grow and continue to be limited until such time that you have either completed that process or shown why you cannot.
Dr. Allen, may I chime in?
Sure.
I just want to clarify that in our policy, we have not issued a blanket mandate of return to campus for fulfillment of your work responsibilities, but everyone should be communicating directly with their chain of command, because there are some positions that require employees to report in person to fulfill their job responsibilities.
Okay. I'm a faculty member who has not been on campus for months now. I've had my first shot and will have my second shot in mid-August. I've been asked to come into campus this week to pack the contents of my office for the move to our DSU downtown campus later in August. I will fill out the pre-campus visitor form in the campus shield. My question is, do I need to get tested before I visit and have the results available?
Yes, we are asking that people test prior to coming to campus. And right now in our policy, it says within 7 days prior to coming to campus that you should get tested. So there are many local pharmacies that are still providing testing at no charge, and that's an avenue of where you can get tested.
The most recent version of the fall academic calendar indicates that residence halls close for fall 2021 the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Does that mean classes will shift to virtual after the Thanksgiving break?
I actually come back to this team, and I'll do that next week on that determination. So Lucretia and Tammy, just make sure that I bring that back to the team next week.
Lucretia, you spoke about travel off campus. How does this affect the use of internship and observation requirements? Or will these types of experiences begin to be prohibited or be very limited?
So there are certain internships that are part of, normal operations of the university, and specifically those would be considered, circumstances where we have MOUs for our students to be participating in organized internship or clinical opportunities. That's consistent with normal operations here at DSU. Travel is more along the lines of those circumstances where there is a special event or a conference, something along those lines, where you should seek approval ahead of time before engaging in those sorts of activities.
Regarding the August incentives for vaccinations, where and when are we to provide proof, and when and how will the monetary amount be distributed?
So to provide proof, you'll need to visit the COVID landing page, and within the COVID operations policy, there's actually a link on the second page that tells you exactly where to click and submit your paperwork. So you're all good to go there. We will send out a communication a little later this week that will provide additional details, such as how payment will issue.
I just want to, for a point of emphasis, just note that I'm sure there's been some underreporting, just because you may not have known how to actually report your vaccination. So if you have not done so, I would encourage you right after this call, if you are in fact fully vaccinated, to go to that link and report, so we can make sure that we have an accurate count going forward here.
How will students know if their classes are accessible virtually? Many students assume they can still take classes virtually or online, though we are going back to face-to-face.
We are having a student parent forum tomorrow, Tuesday at 11. We'll be going over a lot of detail relative to vaccinations and what the classroom will look like for the fall. And then, as I said at the start of this call, I plan to have a forum every week until classes begin, so we can make sure that our entire university community is clear on all the expectations for faculty, staff, and students moving forward.
Will there be a protective barrier that one can see through for faculty on their teaching lecterns?
We have I think I know what you mean. We have any number of PPE relative to COVID-19. That is not a worry. If that is a request of specific faculty or specific department, we'll certainly make that available. I can tell you that we've already done that in many classes and labs across campus, but where there are specific requests, we'll certainly respond to those requests in kind.
Will there be a place that will house those students who have tested positive for COVID?
Just like last semester, we will continue to have a place to isolate and quarantine those individuals who are either have tested positive for COVID or are named as a close contact.
Can the Shield app information be emailed again to employees, since some employees have not been on campus since the university closed?
Repeat that again, Darryl. I missed that. I apologize.
Information on the Campus Shield app, if that information can be emailed again to employees, since some employees have not been on campus since the university closed.
Oh, certainly. You can see that through e-news, or get it through your various supervisors. That certainly could happen.
What preparations are in place for overcrowded classrooms?
Look, as you know, we brought our students back last fall and then did a fair amount of in-person instruction in the spring. The COVID protocols outlined by the CDC and were consistent with our policy will still be in place. So with respect to spacing and the like, you will still find that'll be in order as we look toward the fall.
That's it for my questions, Dr. Allen.
Okay, before we close, I think it's one, I want to thank Dr. Coker for her continued involvement in the university and ongoing support. And Dr. Coker, if you don't mind, I really would like to hear your closing thoughts on this matter and what you think the university should really be focused on as we move toward our reopening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Allen. I just want to say I listened to the line of questions and I appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness. In my humble opinion, Delaware State has really just put the nation on its back in the last year and led by such an amazing example. I mean, I'm a Tuskegee grad, but Lord knows I have a whole lot of Hornet pride. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank you all. Having attended an HBCU on so many levels, med school, residency, all of that, it's important that we maintain the rich tradition where the instructors, the professors lead by example. You are our superheroes. You really are. And, you know, we quote you, we imitate you because we love you. And I think the students have decided, like it or not, they are covering themselves for you. And I really, really, really pray that you search your heart and cover yourselves for them. And if Delaware State could be the first university in the United States of America to have a 100% vaccination rate among staff and students, once again, you will make history. And I'll be right here cheering for each of you. And so I think it can be done. I say we're all in this together, as Dr. Allen always says. Let's be the family that we know we are, and let's just get back to what we do best, which is teaching and learning and creating agents of change. And I thank you for your diligence throughout this pandemic.
Thank you, Dr. Coker. Appreciate your words. I want to thank everybody again for joining. We had a very big crowd today, so I know folks are interested in this particular issue and want to your point, lead by example. Tomorrow is, as I said, our student and parent forum. That'll happen at 2 o'clock via WebEx. I hope you all will join us there as well. And then you can look for an ongoing forum, likely on Tuesdays throughout the month of August and into September. Communication, as I know, is key on all fronts, but trust is right behind that. I want you to know that I certainly trust you and understand that you have entrusted me and my leadership team to do the right thing for yourselves, your family, and this wonderful university community. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for what you're going to do, and I'll see you very soon.
Okay.